Hi, my name is Pam. I had an abortion when I was 18. What I would like to do is just tell you my own personal story. I was raised an only child. My mum and dad were good parents, but I knew from a very early age that they only had eyes for each other. I always felt an outsider. I was never hugged by my mum and dad. I was never told that I was loved. And so I grew up very rebellious, believing that bad attention was better than no attention. I became promiscuous at a very early age. And by the time I was 18, I found out that I was pregnant. And immediately I was consumed with fear, because when I was a young child, my dad said to me, "You will never do or say anything that will upset your mum." So when I found out I was pregnant, I thought there's no way that I can tell mum and dad. So working in London, I decided to secretly arrange to have an abortion. I went to the clinic and I was told that it's just a small procedure and then your problems will be all over. But that was just the beginning of my problems. So I don't remember going to the clinic. I don't remember anything about the procedure, about anything. All I remember was that when I was at the clinic, a lady asked me whether I would take in her 12-year-old daughter. And that's all I remember about the day of the abortion. After that, I just pushed the experience deep down inside me. Moving on, when I was 21, I was rushed into hospital with abdominal pains. I was told it was suspected appendicitis, but when I got to the hospital, they told me that I was having a miscarriage. I said I couldn't be having a miscarriage because I know I'm not pregnant. But they left me for 3 days. And what was appendicitis, in fact, burst, and I ended up with peritonitis. After time, I got through the operation and I went back to work. But I still wasn't feeling right, so I went to see another doctor who referred me. And on examination, they discovered that 3 swabs had been left in my stomach. And this consultant said to me, "If ever you have problem conceiving, come and see me." But I just pushed it to one side. When I was 29, I met my husband, Mike, and we got married, and we decided together that we would like to have a family. And so we tried, and nothing happened, and we tried again, and nothing happened. We tried for months, and nothing happened. Eventually, I went for tests, and I was told that because of the peritonitis and the swabs that had been left in the stomach, that I would never be able to conceive. And that was a huge, huge moment for me. That was when my world came tumbling down, when the enormity of the abortion that I did when I was 18 just hit me like a ton of bricks. I started having panic attacks. I couldn't sleep. I started drinking heavily. I wasn't eating. And looking and seeing babies around me walking down the aisle in a supermarket was just heartbreaking. When my younger cousins started having their own family, it was just heartbreaking for me. And I know for the first 5 years of my marriage, it was murder. I gave my husband hell. But I was just hurting so much deep down inside. I felt the shame and guilt, and I just could not forgive myself. I went to many priests looking for reconciliation, and they were all really, really kind. But I walked away with the same dark cloud over my head. I just could not forgive myself. And so I started wearing masks. I started working very hard, but playing very hard. I was always the life and soul at the party, but inside I was really, really hurting. Eventually, I joined a prayer group, and a lady in this prayer group invited me to a conference at Walsingham called New Dawn. And while I was there, I went for prayer, and a lady that I'd never met prayed with me, and she said, "You have cried a fountain of tears, and it's now time for you to stop." I knew what she was talking about, but how could I stop? Eventually, I opened up and told 2 friends about the abortion, and they recommended that I go on a Rachel's Vineyard retreat. And after they explained to me what that was about, I said, forget it. There's no way that I'm bringing up the past. It was over 30 years ago. And so I just carried on, wearing all the different masks, covering up the pain that I was really feeling. Eventually, we had a new parish priest, and I got on well with him. And so I opened up to him, and he said the same thing. Go on a Rachel's Vineyard retreat. But I refused. But as would have it, I met the lady who runs Rachel's Vineyard in Ireland. And I opened up to her. She told me that she was also post-abortive and that she was running this retreat called Rachel's Vineyard. And so I decided that I would go on that retreat. And I remember my husband took me to the airport, and I felt as though I had a big A stamped on my forehead. I would have done anything not to have got on that plane. But I did get on the plane. And it was the best weekend that I'd ever had. I was able to look at the way that abortion had affected me. I was able to look at all the anger and the shame and the guilt. I was able to go to the sacrament of reconciliation again. I was able to spiritually connect with my child, and I was able to name her. I thought that my child, 40 years previously, was gone forever. And so to name my child was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling. And so at the end of the retreat, I came home. I knew that I felt different. I knew that God had forgiven me and that I had forgiven myself. While I was getting ready the next morning, I was back at home and back in England. And I was getting ready for the day. And as I was drying my hair, I looked in the mirror and I screamed out to Mike. I said, "Mike, quickly, Mike, come." And he came running upstairs and he said, "What on earth's the matter with you?" And I screamed out and I had tears running down my eyes, down my face. And he said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I've got blue eyes." And he looked at me as though I was mad. He said, "You've always had blue eyes." But for 40 years, I'd always had grey eyes. But now I'd walked out of the cloud and I'd got blue eyes.